Alright, so welcome back everybody. Quick update on the Ducati Scrambler and where I'm at with it. As you can see, the front forks are completely off and removed. I've also taken off the windscreen. And I've taken off the handlebars because I needed to sort those out. So if we move over to here, the real fun begins with rebuilding my forks because the replacement fork tubes have arrived and I got to pull these bad boys apart. So this is going to be a complete rebuild. These are going to be new, the uppers as well as the tubes. I'm going to reuse the lower lugs. Okay. Now the difficulty with getting these things apart is, I will show you here if my camera can focus, this tiny little screw. It's not a Torx head. It's not an Allen head. It is some sort of recessed Torx / Allen / I don't know what it's called. However, there's one on each side, and these have to come out. Now these are just a set screw, so it's just pressing. It's threaded through here, and it's pressing against the tube to hold it in position. There's no hole in this tube that this goes into. However, in order to get this out, and I tried heating it up, putting some heat on it with a map torch, I tried Allen, I tried screwdrivers, nothing was getting this thing out. So I ended up, if I move over to this side here, drilling it out and retapping it. There we go, in order to get these out. So I've got to do the same thing on this side, drill it, tap it, and then I can pull them apart. So yeah, no, I'm just going to pull these apart basically. I'm going to put them in the vise, heat them up, clamp it down, and unscrew the bottom lug once this is drilled out, and then unscrew the top, and then pull the whole things apart, and then hopefully reassemble. So let's see how it goes. I will record little bits as I go along just to show you if I come onto any problems. Otherwise, this is the Ducati front fork rebuild with replacement Chinese tubes. Stay tuned. Alright, so I've got my fork in a soft-jawed vise, nice and tightly. I've got a bowl to catch the fluid for the just in case, and a rag. Due to the accident, this is very likely that the fluid all leaked out, but there might still be some in here. We'll see. Who knows? It'll be exciting to see. So very gently, I'm going to get some pressure on the top cap. This is turning. That came undone pretty quickly. So now, see how much fluid is in here. Yeah, pretty brown and goopy. Alright, gonna let that drain out fully. I'm gonna put my hands down. So yeah, you can see that's the color of the stuff coming out of it. Not nice. That's pretty old. So I know for a fact this has never been changed in the life of the bike, and it's a 2016. So the other thing I want to say before I continue on this is because these pipes are bent and the tubes are bent, I'm hoping the spring and the guide and the rod and everything else are all good and reusable. But there may be some, I may have to cut this right here. Just literally cut it off with a Sawzall or a, and then just cut through it and be able to pull it through, because I don't think it's going to pull through because it's bent so much, but we shall see. You know, all I really want to keep is this, because this is in good shape hopefully and reusable. This and this is bent, so it's going to go anyway, but hopefully it's part of the interiors, and the innards will be good to go. So while I drain this, I'm going to switch off and I'll get back to you in a little while. Alright, so this tube's absolutely buggered, as you can see. Pull the dust cap off the end, remove the circ clip, the C clip from the inside with a pick, and then with some force, because this was bent, you should be able to slide this up and down. The fork seal is still recessed on the inside here, so you got to pull these apart. So in order to do that, it just theoretically takes some pulling. So this is the right side. There we go. Boom. So now the goal is to remove this tube from this lug, and this is drilled out, so there should be nothing holding this in here, just thread sealant on the bottom of the fork tubes. So this means adding some heat to this and then just unthreading this. So that's the plan. Alright, so here's my fork in the vise, and I just can't get enough purchase on it. I've tried heating it up and my vice grips just keep slipping. So what I've gone and done is, you know, the side of the tube's got 2 holes. I've just enlarged the hole here and drilled through to the other side so that I can take my nice big solid screwdriver, pass it through, and now theoretically I should be able to twist lefty loosey, get this bad boy off. It's warm. I'm hoping the sealant on the threads here is loosened up enough from using the torch on it. I did not put the torch on this, just on the tube to get it hot. So let's see if we can get it off. God, this thing is nuts. There we go. This kind of job is not for the timid. Wow. I guess it gives me a workout. There we go. Now it's loosening up. There we go. Finally. What a pain in the aspen. This is why most people do these kind of fork rebuilds with a professional mechanic shop, motorcycle mechanic who's got all the tricks, all the tools, and all the experience. This is my first time doing this, so I'm kind of winging it. So hopefully I don't bugger anything up. But for you home mechanics out there, you know, if you're replacing all brand new parts, then I don't think you can really hurt it. So there you go. There's the tube out. You can clearly see the so that's where the I drilled through, and where the grub screw was. So the grub screw was pressing against the threads here, and I drilled all the way through. So the new fork hopefully will have the same threads, the same pitch. I'll measure those and just check everything. The same holes and the same rings for the top. So, and I've got it here. So may as well pull one out while the camera's rolling. Now, I think I mentioned previously, these are 1 millimeter difference in either length. So, as you can see, let's take my original one. Holes. Yes, the rings line up exactly, and the threads look absolutely fine. So I think that's going to be just fine. And the diameter of the tubes, perfect. I think it's 41 millimeter tubes. So Looks like these Chinese tubes will fit, but until I get them in there, we're not going to know. So what I'm going to do is pull apart the second leg and get this set up for the rebuild. Alrighty, so that's the fork stanchion, whatever you call it. The stainless steel tube removed, and I've got my bottom lug from my right side. You can see they're stamped left and right, which is nice. Thing you have to remember, on the left side you've got the brake caliper, and you've got a little bit of extra metal on the side for everything to attach to, so it's not that hard to figure out which one is which. So at this point what you want to do is really clean up the inside here. Get in there with some cleaner and check the threads that it threads into. Make sure you've got all the swarf out, any bits of metal. Just make sure this is absolutely crystal clean. Now at the very bottom of this, just below the threads, I don't even think you can see it with the camera here now, the lighting's not good enough. There is a large rubber O-ring which seals against the bottom of the fork tube. So you want to make sure that O-ring is in good condition. Run your finger around it, make sure there's no nicks or bumps. Shine a flashlight down inside it and make sure it's good. If not, you're going to have to pick it out with a hooked pick and then replace that O-ring. Mine looks absolutely fine, so I'm happy with that, and everything else looks good on here. So at this point, you've drilled and tapped your set screw here, your grub screw, so you need to go to the hardware store and pick up a little tiny one of these set screws. I went with a metric M5 thread, fine thread metric, so that will thread into this hole. Hopefully you can get Allen headed ones, you can get flat bladed screwdriver headed ones. This is a stainless steel flat bladed screw, so you can see that. There you go. And that's just going to thread down and press against the threads and lock everything in place once it's in place. It does need to be sealed because you don't want to have suspension fluid seeping out of this hole, so you want to make sure that you thread lock this or use some thread sealant once it goes into place. So that's pretty much it. Next thing to do is to attach the scansion, the new fork tubes, and that just means threading it on. So let me grab the new tube. Alright, so here's my new tube. Here's my stanchion. Lug on the bottom. And what you'll do is you're going to add some thread sealant to the bottom of the threads here. And then literally just insert very carefully. And it should start to screw in. Yeah, it does. Absolutely fine. So one thing I want to do first is I'm going to thread this up and down a little bit just to make sure there's nothing in the threads that's going to bind. Make sure it's as smooth, and it feels very smooth right now. Yep, super nice. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to pull that out, clean it up one more time, add some thread sealant, check my threads here, clean everything up, and then pop it back together. Alright, so I've added my thread sealant, a little coat of that all the way around, carefully. Gently thread this in until it seats all the way down, and we should start seeing the thread. Yep, there's the thread beginning, so that's good. You can see the thread through the hole here. I'm just going to keep going until it stops. Now the holes at the top of the pipe, it doesn't really matter. Those are just to allow the fluid through. There we go. Oh man, crank that as tight as you can get it by hand. And then if you have a strap wrench would be good. You can just give it a little tweak with a strap wrench if you have one, a rubber strap wrench. Alright, so once you've attached your new tube and you've threaded it in, you've put your grub screw in to hold everything, next thing to do is to reuse your bronze bushing, which goes on the outside here. So I checked that this is off the old one. Checked that there's no damage on the inside, no damage on the outside. It's got to be completely smooth and free from any burrs, and that's just going to go right here. It has a split in the middle, which will allow you to separate it and go over the edge here. I don't know if you can see that split. This is really hard to do with trying to keep it in the camera lens. So just give it a little split, keep it apart, push it down. There we go. And somewhere here it is. Here we go. Here is my bearing kit from All Balls Racing. And it comes with a couple of brand new dust seals, which is great. And then it comes with a couple of the fork seals, which are good. In order for you to install the fork seals, you need a fork seal driver. And that comes with a little one of these thingies. And the weight. And probably a couple of adjusters. No, that's it. So this wraps around, this goes inside like so, and then this whacks the fork seal onto the inside of the tube. So you need to pick up one of these off of eBay if you want to do it yourself. I can't even remember how much this was. Not very expensive, 15, 20 bucks, something like that. And I've got it forevermore if I ever do this again on another bike that I own. So I figured, for the sake of the video, I will buy a fork seal driver and get it done. So next up, fork seals going in. Alright, so don't forget, before you do anything, once you've got your bronze bushing here on, install your dust cap with the ridges facing upwards. So this is my new fork upper. So before this goes in, I'm obviously consulting my Ducati guide on how this thing goes together. So you can see here clearly it's not that hard. Bushing, washer, fork seal, C-clip, and then the threaded cap to go on the top. So the first thing to go in is the bushing, which looks like that. Again, check the outside, check the inside, make sure it's completely smooth, make sure there's no imperfections, nothing that needs to be polished out or sanded down or get rid of any burrs. Just make sure it's clean and ready to go back in. So that would be the first thing that goes into the top here, the bushing. Then the washer that looks like that. Alrighty, so washer goes in, so bushing, washer, and then the magic, which is the new fork seal. And after the fork seal goes in, you go back and use your original C-clip. So if that makes sense, that's what I'm going to do next. In order to install the seal, I'm going to have to use my seal driver and hammer it into place. Alright, so installing the bushing, and I can't even get it out, it's in there tight. It needs to go down another ½ inch. Sorry, and in order to do that, I don't want to whack it with a screwdriver at any point, so that's a little bit, you know, to get this to seat basically as far down as I can. It is not zooming in nearly enough. Anyway, I need to get this down another 1/2 inch, this bushing, to sit at the base of it. 1.5 inch PVC pipe fits absolutely perfectly inside and will not damage it. So if you put the bushing in, then add your washer on top of it, then take a piece of 1/2 inch PVC pipe and then hit the PVC with a piece of wood. What I'm trying to do here is seat that, hopefully almost it will go in nearly. When in doubt, use violence. There you go, in. If you can see, that is that bushing seated all the way down and in. So the next thing to go in is the washer, which, as we said, looks like that. So that's the washer in. And now the next thing is the fork seal. So I need to clean up this interior of the fork before the fork seal goes in, and then go from there. So cover this with masking tape, piece of paper tape, just to cover those sharp edges as you push your seals down. And then the first thing to go down the tube would be your dust cap, then your fork seal. Make sure that the visible metal band there is facing downwards towards the dust cap. Then your large washer, and then your small bronze washer, the big wide one there. Alright, and then all you have left to put on would be your extra wide one with the split, which would go right here when everything is on. So as soon as you've put all these on, dust cap, fork seal, large washer, retention bearing or whatever that thing's called, and then the last thing to go on there, then you can start to reassemble. Alright, so I'm probably doing these things out of order, but it is what it is. Amateur mechanic. So take your spring cartridge assembly with the threaded end that goes all the way down into the lug, push it through, and then add your bolt at the end. You're going to need your Allen key to tighten that up. Tighten it up. You're going to have to hold it at the end here while you're tightening it, because otherwise it's going to spin. And then in order to take off the cap and keep everything under load, you're going to need to just take a carriage washer, fender washer, bumper washer, whatever you want to call these, and just cut a slot in the top. If I pull this back and push down on it, you will see inside here a threaded nut. And what you need to do is just drop this down on the inside, and that's going to take up the pressure. So pull, push, or rather pull down. There we go. Drop that in over the nut, and now that washer is now holding the pressure of the spring in place. Washer with a slot cut in it, nut there. So what you can do now is just unscrew your top cap. Ta-da! Lovely. And then you can take your upper, double check it's clean again, and then drop this down. All the way down. There you go. Fabulous. So I'll pull the camera back so that you can see. So now I've got my upper in with everything where it needs to go. Now it's time for the fork seal. So here I think you can see there's the washer holding the tension in place, and this will just slot straight off when you want to get rid of it. I'm going to lube up the fork seal. Alright, so I'm going to push this down. This now, theoretically, with a bit of a whack, will seal Here is the fork seal installed and recessed using the fork seal driver with the long ends pointing down towards the fork seal and pushing it in place, and that worked great. So you just want it on a nice solid surface and just ram that bad boy home, and it will seat itself nicely. Forks all back together except for adding oil and tightening up the top cap. So Dave Moss tuning. Dave knows his stuff, so I'm going to go with what he says. This is the right fork leg, and he recommends 5-way oil for the right fork leg. So, and 427 mil. So measure it out into your Pyrex, 427 mil, and then add your fork oil. If any of it comes running out the bottom, you know you've got a bad seal. Slow and steady. Glug, 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 glug. So he's done the research. He's tried different weights of oil. And supposedly this gives the best ride for non-adjustable suspension, like what the Scrambler has. There we go. That's 427 mil in. So now all I have to do is remove the washer and keep it under load while I do that, and then tighten this down. New fork tube, new upper, and everything looks good. No leakage that I can see at this point. I'm going to let this sit overnight with some paper towel under it. And fingers crossed, there will be no drips on the paper towel in the morning. So that's the first, that's the right side done. Now to do the left. One rebuilt fork leg. Fabulous. Alright, so sod's law, put it all back together, and I've got some seepage, a little bit of leakage between the stainless steel stanchion and the lower lug, which means this thread is not properly sealed into the stanchion. So, bummer, right? But the good thing about having a leak here is that I get to pull it all apart and show you exactly how to pull apart the left side fork. Basically, it means taking off the top cap, unscrewing it lefty-loosey, holding everything in a nice tight vise. I wrap my fork leg with duct tape, so I've got a good grip on my on my vise teeth without damaging it. Undo the grub screw, drain out the oil, and then we'll go from there. So anyway, I bought a replacement set of old forks, and this is basically what I'm pulling out. Right now you've got your fork cap attached to your plunger mechanism, and this part here threads into the top of the stainless steel tube. So your tube comes up and this threads into it. Okay, so this is basically what I have to remove in order to take the spring out, which is sitting underneath here, and do that. Now you need a special tool for that, which I've made a homemade one, which I'll show you. So the point of this is basically when you've taken off your fork cap, next you remove nut which holds everything, so you unthread that. Then you can take off the little black bearing slidey thing that just goes up and down like that, and then you can take your removal tool, drop it down like so, and it's going to sit into the teeth. I don't know if you can see this. It just drops down. There are 4 holes there, 4 slots, and this is going to go down and in, and then I can unscrew it from the fork tube, and then pull everything apart. So that's how that works. Pretty easy to make. Just a piece of metal pipe. You need a Dremel cutting tool. Cut some slots, bend them, clean them up with a file, and you're off and running. So this is the objective, to get this out of here. Alright, so that's going to take a little while to drain. Alright, so I got all the oil out. Next thing to do is take off the top cap. Probably should be wearing latex gloves for this, but you know, fork oil isn't going to kill me. Maybe if I drank it. Next I'm going to take off the nut, and then the slidey thing, and now I'm left with the cap that we talked about on the inside that has to be unthreaded from the top of the scansion. So I'm going to insert my tool, drop that inside, and then you're going to need to hold the fork tube. Actually, this is coming undone really. if it's tight, you're going to have to grip the fork tube. This actually is not that tight, and you're just going to unscrew it like so. Awesome little tool. Super easy to make. Highly recommend it if you've got a Ducati and you've got to pull this thing apart. So now I can finger untie. There we go. Alrighty. So now what I can do is pull out lovely. That's the lower portion right here. Leave that on some paper towel. It's a little sticky. And now inside here I've got my spring and my, well, I'm going to pull it out and show you basically. So stick your finger in, lift up. Here's the spring. Put that down also on some paper towel. I'm going to need some more paper towel. Now down on the inside you have some plastic pieces which are basically just spacers, and they space from the bottom of the stanchion to the bottom of the tube, to the bottom of the spring rather. So inside here you've got got any more fluid in here, probably not. Oh, there we go. Here it comes. So there's nothing else inside the fork tubes at this point. So what we have in here is two pieces. One slots inside the other. This is identical, doesn't matter which end, you can just see it slots in here or it slots in here. And this basically goes down inside the fork tube. So this end first with the hole goes all the way down, and then the larger spacer sits on top of that. And then the spring sits on top of that. So that's how easy to break these things down. And now what I can do is separate the tube from the upper just by pulling it apart. Although I do have to remove the dust cap and the retaining clip. So just pull that apart and gently pull that up and off. So that comes off like that. Give that a wipe. Next thing you're probably going to want to do is I want to protect my fork seal from these sharp edges. So I got to put some tape around them, and it's a bit tight because this won't go down any further. This as much as it's going to protrude the top of the. So I still want to get a little bit of tape around it. So I'm just going to clean this edge up with some paper towel. So if I had another fork seal, I wouldn't worry about it. I'd be replacing it anyway. And you know, if I bugger the fork seal by pulling this out at a funky angle, then I'm going to have to fork out more money for a new fork seal when this existing brand new fork seal should be fine, theoretically, as long as I can protect it. Alright, so I've wrapped the inner lips here with some masking tape just to protect it from when it comes down through. Next thing to do is to pop off the dust caps at the bottom here. Very thin screwdriver. Very slowly. Here it begins to go. There we go. There's the dust cap off. Now the retaining ring on the inside needs to be released. Same thing with screwdriver. Just watch you don't scratch the there we go. There's the retaining ring. So that can be stretched and pulled over. Got your dust cap off. If you are going to separate the upper from the stanchion, then you would just pull this all the way off and expose it. I don't actually need to because the holes in the tube are exposed when this is on full extension. So all I actually needed to do is to be able to get my screwdriver into one of these holes. Make sure it fits perfectly, otherwise you're going to deform the hole. So make sure your screwdriver is a really tight fit to that hole. Your other option is to wrap duct tape around this and then clamp it to undo it, but you want to unscrew it from your lower lug by just turning this. So that's what I'm going to do now. Oh, that's tight. There we go. So once that seal's broke, if you need to put some heat on the lower lug, you can with a propane torch. Use the blue bottle, not the yellow. The matte gas is too hot. You'll melt it, but okay. So now just unthread and tighten and tighten and tighten. And you're gonna start exposing the threads. Turn this around. You should be able to see. There we go. And then I need to let go of this. And there we go. Lower stanchion removed from the lower lug. So now I need to add better sealant to the threads here so we don't get a seepage. Alright, so now I've added a thin coat of black silicone thread sealant to the outside of the threads, and I've done a little bit on the inside here as well. So now it's just a case of reassembling and threading it all back together again. So with that, we're going to gently insert and trying really carefully not to cross thread. If it goes in smoothly, you've not cross threaded it. If it feels like it's not turning, you've cross threaded it. Alright, so at this point I'm going to go back to, I've got my threads in, I'm going to go back to my screwdriver and tighten this thing up and tighten it down as far as I possibly can. Alright, some thread sealant on the grub screw there. And now we let that set up for 24 hours. And we can put it all back together. And we can put it back together now, but just don't add any fluid. So the retaining clip can go back in very carefully. Spread it, drop it in, push that down, make sure it sits in the inside the recess of the clip all the way around, so that's held in place. Then you can push your dust cap back on. So fingers crossed, this is now properly sealed once the thread sealant cures around the inner threads and around the grub screw. We hope. We won't know until it's back on the bike and we start riding it. There should not be any leakage from the fork seal or from the lower lug and stanchion connection. Alright, so it's that point, everything's back here. What we can do is put everything back in. Alrighty, so putting it all back together, I couldn't find any proper diagrams. Every diagram I looked at, it looked like it was slightly different. So I'm basing this description based on how I pulled apart the old one. The first part to go in is this long tube with the hole in the bottom, with the hole at the bottom going in first. So that goes all the way in. And like I said, the next bit is this part that sits on top of that and centers itself. So that goes in. And I guess I could probably do this smoothly by keeping it horizontal. Pushing that in like that. Oop, there it goes. Then your spring. There is a fat end and a thin end. The fat end goes first. So the widest end goes first. So that needs to go into and all the way down and in. There we go. That's it all the way in. Next bit would be the Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Here we go. Your threaded rod that screws into the top of your tube. So for that, I'm going to push this all the way up so I can see it nice and easily. Make sure you've got no swarf or anything in there. So that goes on the inside like so. And then a little bit of pressure on this. It's either because the there we go. Just going to push down on that a little bit. Get the thread started. Go as far as you can with your fingers. And then my homemade tool. There we go. So that is tight. Perfect. Alright. So that's now in. Now we mustn't forget our bronze or brass or whatever this is to go on that inside threaded area. So you want to very carefully separate it, pull it apart, push it down until it snaps into place. There we go, snaps in. It's all nice and clean. Then we have our little black slidey bead that goes on. Then we have the nut. There's a flat side and there's a curved side, and the flat side wants to be facing up. So you want to thread that on next. All the way down. There we go. And the next thing would be your cap. So there you go. I don't want to tighten this up all the way because I need to add my fluid, and I don't want to add my fluid until everything's cured with the thread sealant, the silicone thread sealant. So leave this for 24 hours, let it cure, and then fill this up with my fork oil tomorrow when everything is dry. According to Mom, my motorcycle owner's manual, it says to use 298 cc's. So as you can see, I'm right on the 300, just under the 300 milliliters, which is the same as 300 cc's. So if you don't have a measuring thing that says cc's on it, just know that milliliters and cc's are identical when it comes to liquid. You don't have to worry about it. So 298 cc's of 20 weight fork oil. Even though the owner's manual calls for 7.5 weight, Mr. Moss has suggested that we use 5 in the right and 20 in the left, and that's going to make all the difference to a smoother ride, a better ride. So I'm trusting in Dave Moss's judgment, experience, and research. Let somebody else research and reinvent the wheel. So yeah, let's go ahead and pour this into this. So I need to alright, so that's all the fork oil poured in. Now it's just a question of dropping that in, finger tightening it up, and then wrapping the end with some insulating tape and just tightening it up good and proper. So I'm going to do that now.